And you've taken that experience, everything that you had to endure, and channeled it into advocacy. I can see you're wearing your Team Beans T-shirt. Your Twitter bio says you're a dad fighting on behalf of Francesca for Team Beans. You've obviously learned so much no parent wants to have to find out through this experience. And you talked earlier about, how angry it makes you, just how few treatment options there are, how little research there is on this. What did you learn about what needs to be done for pediatric cancer research, what's needed in terms of funding, in terms of expertise, and a lot of the issues that your advocacy is focused on now?
I mean, how long do you have?
I think we have
Uh,
maybe a few more minutes.
okay, so I I've referred to sort of what we talked to about with Francesca as the worst reporting project ever when she was diagnosed. But after she was treated, I sort of learned, or after she passed away, and I got involved and I wrote that op-ed for the Washington Post. I interviewed oncologists, experts, advocates, parents, um, and you learned each person I talked to said this was the problem, and this was the problem, and this was the problem. And I learned how, with childhood cancer, we sort of have to come at this with like a hammer and a nail. And basically, there is the aspect of, um, there's the funding issue, which it's severely underfunded. Uh, so many, uh, so much of the money raised for childhood cancer, as I mentioned, there are so many few kids that get cancer. I mean, it's 15,000, which like rare is only rare until it happens to you. But you have 200,000 cases of breast cancer a year. So pharmaceutical companies are not spending billions of dollars to develop rare cancer drugs. So where is that money coming from? The largest funder for childhood cancer is the federal government, and then it's followed by private charity, people like us, people like all of these amazing institutions which have raised millions of dollars. The other aspect is the lack of data. There's the lack of data. What when Francesca was diagnosed, I would have loved to have known how many children who had metastatic HERT at 6 months old lived or died. That data was not available to me. Um, there's the fact that we don't necessarily have resources for parents when they first find out about their kid's diagnosis. Um, this is perhaps more of an institutional problem, but getting Francesca's medical records sent to all of the institutions was, I would describe it as a pain in the ass. I had to go down to the medical records room, and they could only give them to me on CD. They couldn't send them to the institution. So my child has a massive brain tumor, and she's up against the clock, and I have to physically get the copies of the CDs and overnight them to hospitals across the country. Uh, there's it's such a broad problem that you have to come at each aspect individually, and that's what I've sort of decided I want to devote much of my life to doing.